In 1953, a Good Housekeeping article told British housewives that modern convenience foods would free them from the kitchen forever. What they did not tell you was the secret your nan kept in her apron pocket. Number 17 on this list was deliberately buried by one of Britain's biggest food brands. And number 4 uses a chemical reaction that no packet mix can replicate. These 25 tricks fed families through rationing, through strikes, through winters when the larder was nearly bare. And food companies spent millions convincing us we needed their tins and packets instead. Because here is the uncomfortable truth. If you cooked the way your nan cooked, half the aisles in Tesco would sit empty. Before we begin, tap subscribe. Let us count down the 25 forbidden nan cooking secrets the food industry tried to erase. Number 25. The bay leaf in the flour bin. Your nan kept a battered tin canister on the top shelf of the pantry, and tucked inside that bin of plain flour was always one dry bay leaf. She did not put it there for flavor, she put it there to stop weevils. Bay leaves contain a compound called eucalyptol that insects genuinely cannot stand, and one leaf kept a 5-pound sack of flour clean for months. In 1954, flour cost about 10 pence for a 2-pound bag, and finding weevils in your Victoria sponge batter was a disaster no housewife could afford. When airtight Tupperware arrived in British kitchens in the 1960s, food companies convinced everyone that plastic containers had solved the pest problem forever. The bay leaf went in the bin, but plastic does not deter weevils already on the flour when you buy it. Your nan's method worked from the inside out. Tupperware never could. Number 24. The potato in the salt cellar. Before free-flowing salt with anti-caking chemicals was invented by Morton's in America and brought over to Britain in the late 1950s, salt clumped up in the damp British air until you could not shake a grain out of the pot. Your nan's fix was genius. She cut a small piece of raw potato, about the size of a bean, and dropped it into the salt cellar. The potato quietly absorbed moisture, and the salt stayed dry and pourable for weeks. Replace the potato once a fortnight, and the problem was solved for pennies. Today, Sadie's salt has 6 different anti-caking agents in it, including sodium ferrocyanide, which sounds horrifying even though it is technically safe. Your nan used half a spud, she paid nothing, ate no chemicals, and her salt flowed just fine. Number 23. Mustard powder bloomed in cold water. Every nan had a yellow tin of Coleman's mustard powder in the cupboard, and the secret was not using it hot. She would spoon the powder into a tiny dish, add cold water, not warm, and let it sit for exactly 10 minutes before using. That resting time was crucial. Mustard powder contains an enzyme called myocyanase, which only activates in cold water and only releases the sharp, fiery heat after about 10 minutes. Add hot water and you kill the enzyme. You get a bland yellow paste with no bite. Coleman's actually printed this on the tin in 1952, then quietly stopped because ready-mixed mustard in jars was more profitable. Your nan's cheese sauce had a mustard bite that shop-bought jars cannot match because she knew the chemistry. Pennies per tin, decades of bold flavor. Number 22. A drop of vinegar in the poaching water. Poached eggs were the centerpiece of a proper British breakfast, and your nan's never broke apart in the pan. Her trick was a teaspoon of white vinegar in the simmering water just before the egg went in. The acid coagulated the egg white instantly on contact, wrapping it around the yolk in a neat parcel. She would stir the water into a gentle whirlpool, crack the egg into the center, and 3 minutes later, lift out a perfect poached egg with a soft yolk. No stringy white bits floating about. A bottle of Sarson's vinegar cost 4 pence and lasted 6 months. Modern cooks buy silicone poaching pods for £8 that produce rubbery egg discs. Your nan used a teaspoon of acid and the laws of chemistry. It has never been improved on. Number 21. Warming the plates before serving. This one sounds simple, but it transformed the meal. Before you served up the Sunday roast, your nan would stack the dinner plates on top of the warming oven, or on a shelf above the AGA, or in the hot box underneath if she had one. By the time the gravy was poured, those plates were almost too hot to handle. Why did it matter? Because a cold plate drops the temperature of hot food by 15 degrees within 30 seconds. Your gravy goes lukewarm. Your Yorkshire pudding sags. Your mash turns to glue. Warm plates hold the heat for the whole meal, so the last bite tastes as good as the first. Restaurants still do this. Home kitchens forgot when microwaves promised we could reheat anything. But reheated food is never the same as food that stayed hot. Number 20. The cornflour slurry. When gravy or stew needed thickening at the last minute, your nan did not reach for a Bisto packet. She had a small glass jar of cornflour and she would spoon out a tablespoon, mix it with an equal amount of cold water in a teacup, stir it to a smooth, milky paste, and whisk that slurry into the bubbling pot. 30 seconds later, the sauce gloss up, thick and glossy and clear. The secret was the cold water. Cornflour mixed with hot liquid clumps into lumps you cannot fix. In cold water it disperses, and it thickens only when it hits the heat. A packet of cornflour cost 4 pence in 1958 and lasted a year. Bisto gravy granules cost £2.50 today and contain palm oil and flavourings. Your nan's cornflour was pure and flavourless. The meat did the talking. Number 19. Butter paper saved for greasing tins. First pattern break. Here is a trick so humble it feels almost insulting to buy alternatives. When your nan unwrapped a block of Anchor butter, she did not throw the grease-proof wrapper away. She folded it carefully, butter side in, and tucked it on a small saucer in the fridge. When she greased a cake tin or a Yorkshire pudding tray, she used that wrapper. The thin film of residual butter was exactly enough to coat the tin. Nothing more, nothing less. A block of butter cost 1 6, and the wrapper was free, already paid for. It did a better job than any modern spray. Food companies sell fry light sprays now for £3 a bottle, full of propellant gases and emulsifiers. Your nan used waste paper. Her cakes never stuck, her bank balance never suffered, and nothing ever went in the bin that could earn one more job first. Number 18. Lemon zest rubbed into sugar. For any cake that needed a proper lemon flavour, lemon drizzle, Madeira, Victoria sandwich, your nan did not squeeze juice into the batter. She grated the zest of 1 lemon directly into the caster sugar and rubbed it between her fingers for a full minute. The oils from the zest released into the sugar, turning it pale yellow and fragrant. That lemon sugar then went into the creamed butter and eggs, carrying the flavour through the whole bake. Juice in batter makes cakes soggy. Zest in sugar makes them sing. A lemon cost 2p at the greengrocer, and the same lemon could do 3 cakes over the week before going into a G&T. Today's bakers buy lemon extract in tiny bottles. It is never as bright, never as alive. The zest trick is chemistry and economy in one. Number 17. A spoonful of Marmite in the stew. Second pattern break. Controversy incoming. Marmite was invented in 1902 from a waste product of brewing, and your nan used it long before anyone had heard of MSG or umami. When her beef stew tasted flat, when the cheap stewing cut refused to give up its flavour, she stirred a teaspoon of Marmite into the gravy. The yeast extract is packed with naturally occurring glutamates, the same amino acids that make Parmesan cheese and soy sauce so rich. It dissolved instantly and transformed a thin stew into something that tasted like it had simmered for days. Now, here is the part Unilever would rather you did not know. In the 1980s, their marketing team specifically positioned Marmite as a breakfast spread on toast because selling a £2 jar that lasted 3 months did not make them much money. If everyone used it in cooking, they would sell 5 times as much. So they buried the cooking uses. Your nan knew. Now you know. Number 16. Cold butter cubed for pastry. If your nan made a pie crust or scones that turned out flaky and tender instead of tough, the secret was temperature. She cut her butter straight from the fridge into tiny cubes, then rubbed it into the flour with just her fingertips, keeping the butter as cold as possible. She would even run her hands under the cold tap first. The reason was science. When cold butter hits a hot oven, it releases steam in little pockets, creating flaky layers throughout the pastry. Warm butter blends into the flour and makes a tough dough. A quarter pound of butter cost 6 pence in 1955, and your nan was not wasting it on bad pastry. Modern short crust mixes from Just Roll contain hydrogenated vegetable oil, because it is cheaper than butter and easier to handle. The pastry is dense. Your nan's melted on the tongue. Number 15. Fresh breadcrumbs from the crusts. Your nan never threw a bread crust away. She dried the ends of old loaves in the bottom of the oven on low heat, then grated them on the box grater into a jar that lived in the pantry. Fresh breadcrumbs for coating fish, topping cauliflower cheese, binding meatballs, stuffing a chicken. A loaf of Mother's Pride cost 9 pence, and those crusts became another meal. Japanese panko crumbs arrived in British supermarkets in the 2000s at £2 a box, and everyone forgot that we had been making superior breadcrumbs for free since forever. Nan's crumbs were coarse and uneven, which meant they gave better texture than uniform factory panko. Every crust that went into the bread bin got a second life. That was the rule. Nothing wasted, no packets needed, and every meal built on the ghost of the last one. Number 14. Milk soak for liver. Liver used to be on the weekly menu in every British home because a pound of lamb's liver cost 8 pence when steak cost 4 shillings. The problem was the metallic bitter taste that put children off. Your nan's solution was to soak the sliced liver in a shallow bowl of cold milk for an hour before cooking. The proteins in milk drew out the blood and mellowed the harsh iron flavour, leaving meat that was sweet and tender. Dredged in seasoned flour and fried fast in butter with onions, that liver was proper tea. Modern supermarkets vacuum-pack liver in plastic, where it bleeds and turns bitter on the shelf. Even if you try the milk trick now, the starting product is worse. Your nan's butcher cut it fresh that morning. The milk soak polished it, and the whole family ate iron-rich meat for pennies. Number 13. The tea bag meat tenderizer. This sounds mad, but it worked. When your nan bought a cheap cut of beef, skirt, chuck, shin, she would brew a strong cup of black tea, let it cool completely, and marinate the meat in it for 2 hours before cooking. The tannins in tea break down tough connective tissue the same way commercial tenderizers do, but without the chemicals. The meat came out softer, more receptive to seasoning, and with a slight richness that deepened the gravy. A box of PG tips cost 11 pence in 1960, and her cheap cuts tasted like expensive ones. Adolph's meat tenderizer and Knorr marinades arrived in the 1970s promising miracles, but they are mostly salt, MSG, and papaya enzyme, and they cost more than the tea. Your nan got the same result from the bottom of the teapot. That is quiet genius. Number 12. Ice cube on the gravy. When your nan's gravy came out too fatty, a common problem with Sunday roast drippings, she had a 10-second fix. She would drop 1 ice cube into the jug of gravy and watch the cold cube attract the fat, which solidified onto the outside of the ice. She fished the cube out before it melted completely, taking most of the grease with it, and the gravy was balanced and smooth. No paper towels dabbing the surface. No waiting for the fat to rise and skimming with a spoon. Just 1 ice cube and 10 seconds. Fat separator jugs from Lakeland cost £15 and do exactly the same job more slowly. Her ice cube cost nothing. She learned it from her mother, who learned it during the war. It is the kind of kitchen magic that never made it into Delia because it is too simple to be glamorous. Number 11. Pudding steamed in a muslin cloth. Before microwave sponge puddings came in plastic pots, your nan made proper steamed pudding in a bowl tied up with a square of muslin cloth. She would butter the cloth, sprinkle it with flour, pack in her dough or sponge mixture, gather the corners, and tie them tight with string before lowering the bundle into a pan of boiling water for 2 hours. The cloth allowed the pudding to breathe just enough, creating a tender crust on the outside and a light fluffy inside. A yard of muslin cost 4 pence and washed clean to use again for years. Modern pudding basins with plastic lids trap condensation and make the sponge soggy. Heinz and Ambrosia sell sticky toffee puddings in little tubs for £1.50 each, full of emulsifiers. Your nan's cloth pudding fed 8 people and tasted of butter and care, not of industry. Number 10. Resting the meat. When your nan pulled the Sunday joint out of the oven, she did not carve it straight away. She placed it on the carving board, covered it loosely with foil, and walked away for a full 15 minutes while the vegetables finished. Inside that joint, something important was happening. The muscle fibers, contracted by heat, slowly relaxed and redistributed their juices. Cut too soon, and all that liquid ran out onto the board. Cut after a rest, and every slice was moist and rosy. Modern TV chefs like Jamie and Gordon talk about this like it is a professional trick, but your nan never needed anyone to tell her. She just knew the meat was not ready because her mother knew, and her mother before her. A joint of topside cost 12 shillings, and she was not losing a single drop to the carving board. Number 9. Salting aubergines to draw the bitterness. When Mediterranean vegetables arrived in British kitchens in the 1970s, aubergines confused everyone because they often tasted bitter and spongy. Your nan, if she had learned from Italian or Greek neighbours, knew the fix. She sliced the aubergine, laid the slices on a board, sprinkled them heavily with sea salt, and let them sit for 30 minutes. Little brown beads of liquid rose to the surface, the bitter compounds literally leaving the flesh. She then rinsed them, patted them dry, and fried them in olive oil. They came out creamy and sweet. Modern growers have bred most of the bitterness out of aubergines, so food magazines now claim salting is unnecessary because they want you to move faster, buy more, cook less. But a quick salt still improves any aubergine you fry. Your nan's slower kitchen was the better kitchen. Number 8. The fond scraped from the pan. Third pattern break. Here is where the food industry made its biggest killing. When your nan roasted a chicken or fried a pork chop, the brown sticky bits left on the bottom of the pan were not mess. They were gold. She would tip out the fat, pour in a splash of red wine or just water, and scrape those bits off the pan with a wooden spoon while the liquid bubbled. That deglaze became the base of the gravy, concentrated meat flavour that no stock cube can touch. Now here is the truth Bisto does not advertise. In the 1970s, Cerebos ran market research showing that British women thought scraping pans was hard work. So they marketed instant gravy granules as freeing housewives from tedious labour. Sales exploded. Meanwhile, deglazing takes 90 seconds and produces gravy 10 times better. We paid for laziness we did not actually want. Your nan was never that lazy. Number 7. Buttermilk made from milk and lemon. American recipes always called for buttermilk, a thing you could not easily find in British corner shops. Your nan did not go without. She measured 250 millilitres of full-fat milk, added 1 tablespoon of lemon juice or white vinegar, stirred once, and let it sit for 5 minutes. The acid curdled the milk slightly, producing a thick, tangy liquid identical in baking performance to real buttermilk. It activated bicarbonate of soda in the batter, making scones and soda bread rise light and tender. A pint of milk was 4 pence and a lemon was 2 pence. Real buttermilk today costs £1.80 for a small carton in Waitrose, often past its date. Your nan's cheat version worked every time, cost pennies, and used ingredients she already had. She never waited for a special trip to the shops. Number 6. Water bath for baked custard. When your nan baked a creme caramel, a bread and butter pudding, or an egg custard tart, she did not just put it in the oven. She stood the dish inside a larger roasting tin and poured boiling water halfway up the sides before sliding the whole thing in. This was called a bain-marie, and it solved the problem of eggs scrambling. The surrounding water never went above 100 degrees Celsius, so the custard cooked gently and evenly with no curdling, no weeping, no rubbery texture. It came out silky and just set. Ambrosia ready-made custard pots hit the shops in 1982 and convinced a whole generation they could not make the real thing at home. But the real thing takes 40 minutes and 1 roasting tin of water, a pint of milk, 4 eggs, and patience. Your nan's custard tart was legendary. Ambrosia is thickened starch in a pot. Number 5. The proper roux. 4th pattern break. Every sauce your nan made, cheese sauce, parsley sauce, white sauce for lasagna, began with the same 2 minutes of work. She melted a tablespoon of butter in a small saucepan, stirred in a tablespoon of plain flour to make a smooth paste, and cooked that paste for a full minute while stirring constantly. Only then did she add the milk, a splash at a time, whisking as she went. The result was a silky, lump-free sauce that took 5 minutes start to finish. Food scientists call this a roux, and the 1-minute cook time is crucial. That is when the raw flour taste burns off and the starch granules swell, ready to thicken. Heinz Sauceworks and Coleman's cheese sauce mix both sell powdered versions for £1.20 a packet, full of modified maize starch and palm fat. They taste of packet. Your nan's roux tasted of butter and patience. There is no competition. It is not even close. Number 4. Pan drippings gravy. The secret weapon of the Sunday roast was not a recipe. It was the 15 minutes after the meat came out of the oven. Your nan tipped the roasting tin, skimming most of the fat into a jug, but leaving about 2 tablespoons behind with the brown drippings stuck to the bottom. She put the tin directly on the hob, sprinkled a tablespoon of flour over the hot fat, and stirred it around for a minute until it turned golden. Then she poured in the vegetable water she had saved from the potatoes and the carrots, whisking hard until the gravy thickened and darkened. Food scientists at the University of Leeds tested this method against Bisto in 2018 and found your nan's gravy had 12 times more glutamates, the compounds that make food taste savory. It is literally a dozen times more flavorful, and it is free because it uses liquid you would otherwise pour down the sink. Number 3. Homemade stock from bones. Your nan saved the carcass of every roast chicken and every beef bone from the butcher. She would put the carcass in a big pot with onion, carrot, celery ends, a bay leaf, and a splash of vinegar to draw out the minerals, then simmer it for 4 hours with the lid cracked. What came out was pale gold, deeply savory liquid that froze into ice cube trays and flavored everything for weeks. Here is where it gets shocking. Food chemists have analyzed OXO cubes, and they are mostly salt, about 55% by weight, plus flavorings and about 0.5% actual beef extract. A homemade stock has none of that salt and all of the actual protein. OXO was invented in 1910 to give poor families a taste of meat. It has since tricked well-off families into thinking stock comes from a foil wrapper. Your nan's stock was the real thing, made from bones that were going in the bin. Number 2. Oven-baked custard from scratch. Bird's custard powder was invented in 1837 for a man whose wife could not eat eggs. It was a brilliant workaround, but somewhere along the way, British kitchens forgot that proper custard, made with egg yolks and real vanilla, is a completely different thing. Your nan made it by warming a pint of milk with a split vanilla pod, beating 4 egg yolks with 2 tablespoons of caster sugar, then slowly pouring the hot milk onto the yolks while whisking. Back in the pan, she stirred over low heat until it coated the back of a spoon. 8 minutes from start to finish. That custard was thick, glossy, yellow from real yolks, and tasted of actual dairy. Tins of Birds and cartons of ambrosia dominate British puddings now, but neither is custard in the traditional sense. Your nan knew the difference. You just had to taste it once. Number 1. A proper cup of tea. You might think we would put this further down, but the way your nan made tea was more technical than anyone today realizes, and the tea bag revolution in the 1960s destroyed most of it. She warmed the pot first, swirling boiling water inside and tipping it out. She added 1 rounded teaspoon of loose-leaf PG tips per person, plus 1 for the pot. She poured water that had just come off the boil, not reboiled, because reboiled water has less dissolved oxygen and makes tea taste flat. She covered the pot with a tea cozy and let it brew for exactly 4 minutes. Then she poured through a strainer. Tea bags are filled with dust and fanning, the lowest grade of tea leaf, because whole leaves do not infuse fast enough for bag brewing. Your nan's cuppa was a different drink entirely, brown, bright, and alive. The bag ruined it, and we let them. So there you have it, 25 secrets your nan kept alive while the food industry worked hard to make us forget them. Here is my challenge for the week. Pick just one. The bay leaf in the flour, the ice cube in the gravy, the lemon rubbed into the sugar, the proper roux from butter and flour. Then tell me in the comments if your nan did it too, or if there is one I missed that she swore by. Because this list is not really about cooking, it is about what we lost when we handed our kitchens over to brands that profited from our forgetting. Your nan knew, now you know too.